Well, they did it again. Okay. I'm doing this. Good afternoon, everyone. It's another winter. You know what that means? We get another Destiny 2 expansion. With this new expansion we just got on November 10th, 2020, we got the new DLC Destiny 2 Beyond Light. And with this new DLC, I'm about to weave you guys a tale of a young Destiny 2 hero here, and how my fall from grace as a new guardian of Europa is not going to happen. On a previous note, before we start this video, yes, Destiny 2 was a very fun game. I had very fond and wonderful memories of this game. Released back in September 6, 2017, I have been playing as a new guardian ever since the game's initial release, but this time, I kind of draw the straw. Also, for the side disclaimer, I have been playing Destiny 2 since the original release. I have been a Guardian since September 6, 2017. I have mained all 3 classes all throughout this time. I have played every single expansion up to Beyond Light. I'm going to start by apologizing here and bashing Destiny 2 if any of you are still Destiny 2 fans. I have been an all-time fan of the series until up to probably about the last expansion. So I'm going to be covering pretty much everything up until that point. Shadowkeep, I pretty much stopped playing around the beginning of the release of Shadowkeep. So my knowledge beyond that is a little bit fuzzy, and I do have knowledge of Beyond Light though. So let's go ahead and dive into the video. And I do apologize for anyone beginning to be roasted in this video. This is not an actual just complete roast of the series as much as it is from a letter to the creators of the game from a former player. So let's jump right in. Destiny 2, also known as Destiny 2 New Light, is a free-to-play online multiplayer first-person shooter video game developed by developer Bungie. It was originally released as a pay-to-play game in 2017 for Xbox, PlayStation 4, and Microsoft Windows platforms. It became free-to-play under the New Light title of this last October 1st, 2019, followed by the game's release on Google Stadia the following month, and then the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, and S platforms in November 2020. The game was published by Activision until December 31st, 2018, when Bungie acquired the publishing rights to the franchise, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. It is a sequel to 2014's original Destiny and its subsequent expansions. Set in a mythic science fiction world, the game features a multiplayer shared world environment with elements of role-playing games like the original activities. In Destiny 2 are divided among players versus environment and player versus player PvP and PvE respectively. Game types. In addition to normal story missions, PvE features 3-player strikes and 6-player raids. A free roam patrol mode is also available for each planet and features public events as well as activities not featured in the original game. And these activities have an emphasis on exploration of the planets and interactions with non-end playable characters, other known as NPCs. The original Destiny only features NPCs in social spaces. PvP features objective-based modes as well as traditional deathmatch game modes. Alright, that was a really lengthy explanation of the title. So for those of you who don't know the plot, let's go ahead and get into the plot before I start roasting said plot. Players assume the role of a guardian, protectors of Earth's last safe city as they wield a power called Light to protect the last city from different alien races and combat the looming threat of the darkness. Like the original Destiny, the game features expansion packs to further the story and adds new content and missions. Year 1 of Destiny 2 featured 2 small expansions, Curse of Osiris in December 2017, Warmind in May 2018. A third large expansion called Forsaken was released in September 2018, beginning Year 2 with an overhaul on all of the gameplay base of the game. The base game and the 3 expansions were packaged into Destiny 2 Forsaken Legendary Collection. An annual pass was also available alongside the initial release, we'll get into that in a second, containing 3 premium content drops for Year 2. And here comes the dark time. Year 3 began the large expansion Shadowkeep in October 2019. It is a standalone release, not requiring the previous expansions to play. Released alongside this 4th expansion was a version of Destiny 2 called New Light, a free-to-play re-release of Destiny 2, which also includes access to the first 2 expansions. Separate season passes also became available for each season's content. While the main Destiny 2 game is free to play, all other content required purchasing. Upon its release, Destiny 2 received general favorable reviews from critics. The game also received praise for its many improvements over its predecessor. The original Destiny received much criticism for its story, but Destiny 2 is praised for having a more robust story and an actual fleshed out main villain. As with the original, gameplay for the most part was also highly praised, as well as its graphics, multiplayer, and the new public events. Reviews were divided on the recategorization of the weapons, Leviathan Raid, Crucible, and even the newer activities like the adventures and lost sectors, but praise was unanimous over the exploration of the game world. Changes to the PvP were welcomed by some reviewers, although some were very critical for the mode lacking a player choice. Destiny 2 was nominated and won for various awards such as the Game Awards in 2017 and Game Critic Award. Alright, I think that's pretty much it. So now it's time to get into why Destiny is one of the two most horrible and most critiqued games in the entire face of the planet. So with the release of Destiny 2, young Spencer was hype. I got to begin my adventure as a wonderful guardian in this whole new world. The campaign was just wild. Like when it first came out, we had access with the base game. We had level 20, light level could go up to 305. You had 4 new planets. You had main campaign missions. You had 6 strikes, except one of them was PS exclusive. You had, I don't even know, you had the Nightfall, Crucible, competitive, Iron Banner, faction rallies, the farm, the tower, and Leviathan Raid. The game was all amazing. Me and my friends were all on all the time, and it was just so much fun until about a month and a half went by, and we kind of realized something. The game was just boring. We kind of noticed some of the content. We knocked out the campaign in just over a little over a day, and we started on the grind, all of the relic grinds, you know, all the you gotta get that exotics, and you gotta get all this other stuff. It was so cool when it first came out, and then just as we continued to play the game, we kind of noticed this trend of just like, even after like a week, it was just like an instant just fall off, like turn off to the game. We still to this day can't really pinpoint what it was. We thought the base game just had released with like maybe just a smidgen of content that wasn't there. And then we were all like, nah, that can't possibly be the reason why this game's no good. And then what do you know? 2 months later, on December 5th, 2017, dropped the very first DLC just 2 months after release, Curse of Osiris. Curse of Osiris then dropped that December. New expansion added content focused on the main character of the whole series, Osiris, which personally was probably the most garbage character in the game from the lore of the original Destiny, of whom the Trials of Osiris PvP mode was named. The expansion took players to the new Planet Mercury with its own patrol mode, certain missions and strike required for players to progress through the Infinite Forest, an area that featured particularly generated enemies, which was then reused by later events, and more later events. This was kind of the first big snag in Destiny for me, was that when it came to like everything, like even to the day, like you get to like Halloween, Valentine's Day, you get to all these new events, the summer event, it just keeps reusing the same Infinite Forest run. Like, Bungie, please. Additionally, Rise of Osiris raised the XP cap, raised to 25. The power level cap was then increased to 330 in addition to the new character Osiris, his ghost name Sigira. Sigira? Yep, I'm going to say Sigira on this one. It's one of the first ghosts we've ever heard with a female voice, as well as the character Brother Vance from the original game, who was an NPC of Mercury in the Lighthouse, formerly the exclusive social space in Destiny for those who went flawless in Trials of Osiris. There was also a timed exclusive Crucible map for PS4 for players called Warm Haven. Instead of an entirely new raid, a new feature called Ray Lair was added, featuring new areas of the existing Leviathan raid and a different final boss. So for the plot of Osiris, like, off the top of my head, I actually had to Google it. I couldn't even remember the whole Mercury Osiris DLC. It was probably, in my opinion, one of the worst, weakest DLC drops that Bungie's ever dropped, and I think a lot of just people would agree with me on that one. Trial of Osiris was pretty all night. It released this really cool shell, the Night Shell, and I wish to this day I still had it in my account, but unfortunately I'm not playing the game anymore. But if I did, I definitely want that shell. That was pretty much one of the only features I can even remember that was like proudly introduced. Was just the Trials of Osiris in the DLC. Everyone kind of hated it, and Mercury was just super small. Like, it was really lazy. You could tell it was just like you could have made it as a game developer in like an hour. I mean, it's pretty weak. And then after the 1 week of that DLC being dropped, it's just like instant just boredom all over again. And then we're not even going to talk about the amount of like server lag people had. People couldn't log in. All this different crap happened. There were so many just glitches with the Blizzard store. You couldn't even buy the DLC if you didn't buy like the collector's edition for a while. It wouldn't even let you do any of the expansion nonsense. And now we're just kind of like sit there with the base game, everyone higher level than us, and in PvP you got access to all these great new weapons. And I mean, there wasn't anything like super remarkable that came out of the DLC, but still it was like better weapons than you can get in the base game. On Metacritic, it was actually one of the worst reviewed DLC ever dropped in Destiny 2 history. I'm not really going to include like the link to the Metacritic website on this one, but it got about a 57 out of 100, which is probably one of the lowest Metacritic scores Destiny's ever received, including base game. The base game, even on launch, got an 8 out of 10. But it's so sad when you see your favorite game just like fall from grace like this. It's 2 months after they made it, and already people are just going on and talking shit about it, which did not make a good trend for the game. Even along with that, like PvP became like the only advertising point of Destiny was just to hop on and just kill other Guardians, because a lot of the base game content at that point was just repetitive and boring, and it was so easy to get to level cap in probably like 30 seconds. But even at level cap, like it wants to play like an MMO where you have like a level scale as well, like an item level scale, and like I get that, but like Destiny and the way it handles it, it's just so repetitive. The next expansion that got dropped was Warmind on May 8th, 2018, and focused on the Warmind Rasputin from the original game. Rasputin? I'm gonna go with Rasputin. The expansion took players to the planet Mars in an area called Hellspace, and the original Destiny had also featured planet Mars, but a different location on the planet. So you could tell ahead of time that they had kind of already had the planet in mind, but they just kind of teased it. They didn't release it, even though it took them freaking 5 months to release the planet. This new place also offered Escalation Protocol Horde mode, which could be started by any player in the patrol on Mars. Player fought several waves of hive enemies, which accumulated in a fight with one of unique 5 bosses that rotated weekly, even though really you only kind of cared about one of them. Maximum of 3 players per fire team could participate in the mode, but other players in the patrol area could also join the activity, as well as the XP cap was raised to 30. The power cap was then raised to 380. In addition to Rasputin, a new character named Anna Bray, worst character in the game, was added, which served as a primary NPC on Mars. A timed exclusive strike called the Insight Terminus was added for PS4 players like the previous expansion. Warmind also included a raid lair on Leviathan. The expansion also added a progressive training ranking system for PvP, which we had been asking for since the beginning of freaking time, Blizzard. The rank system still is in the game, and as of Beyond Light, it is still here. Valor is still earned in quick play matches, while Glory was earned in competitive matches. Each new rank, including greater rewards, Valor points are also earned regardless of win or loss, while Glory points are only earned on wins and reduced by losses, which, by the way, I don't know if any of you ever played competitive. It's such a cheese fest. Like, I'm going to go ahead and open that can of worms right now. Competitive play, Destiny's 2 problem child. I'm pretty sure ever since, as long as I remember, ever since competitive and PvP came out, it was just this giant galore fest of just either 5-man teams or just solo players that do not give a simple heck whatever anyone does. It's just this giant myriad of just garbage of people hopping in, using the most overpowered perks, the most overpowered weapons, the most overpowered classes, which of course there's a Destiny 2 meta. So I mean, I'm pretty sure for 99% of the game, hunters were just garbage. I mean, like pure garbage. And I played hunter, and that was my main, was a hunter. And it's just warlock and titan and all these other classes were so dominating in their presence that you couldn't even just like get into anything. And I'm not going to go into the hardcore details because I'm sure there's like 800 videos on YouTube here about the garbageness of competitive here. So there's no point really to get into it. That's just my 3 cents on the matter. So after that horrible, gigantic fight with Warmind, where basically you just come 1-to-1 face-to-face with a giant freaking worm, you get the greatest DLC Destiny 2 has ever made. Destiny 2 Forsaken. Destiny 2 Forsaken was released September 4th, 2018, beginning year 2 of Destiny 2. Similar to the original Destiny's The Taken King expansion, Forsaken had a large overhaul in gameplay, thought not to the extent that Taken King had with the original Destiny. A large expansion, the story has a Western revenge theme according to Bungie. A large portion of the expansion takes place in the reef's tangled shore, include a new raid called Last Witch Raid, which I will get into in just a moment, which takes place in the endgame area, the Dreaming City, also located in the reef. The developers claim that it has more bosses than any previous raid, including from the original game, with a massive roam area, hard-ass puzzles, and the raid will change over time based on players' actions in the raid itself. There's also a new mode called Gamut that contains PvE, PvP, features on its own ranking system called Infamy, which works similar to the Crucible's Valor ranking system. 2 of the 4 players compete against each other while facing PvE enemies. A new weapon type, bow, was also added. The XP cap was then raised to 50. The power cap's also raised to 600, which began a longer grind than any of the previous expansions. A trailer display during Sony's E3 2018 press conference showed the death of Kate 6 by the hands of returning Prince Uldren Sov. Uldren is on a mission to find his lost sister, Queen Mara Sov, believing her to still be alive after the events of the Taken King. And he reads, "The Scorn, former Fallen that were revived from the dead hive, became their own race." The launch trailer for Forsaken revealed the player's guardian would again speak, and the player's guardian had not spoken since the end of the original Destiny's base campaign. Alright, so we're going to talk about Forsaken here in a minute. Forsaken was just the best DLC ever. I can't genuinely remember the last time me and a lot of my buddies that hadn't even played Destiny before had just hopped into a new game for the first time and just like had a super amazing time. So my experiences in Forsaken were just some of the most memorable times I will ever have, and probably the memorablest time I will ever have in a Destiny franchise. I had all sorts of friends that didn't even I know. That's when like the Destiny LFG was a big thing. That's like the huge hype of the Destiny 2 community was like at the Forsaken level. That's why even to this day, everyone will compare every DLC and every previous DLC to things like Forsaken and the Taken King from Destiny 1, just because of how grand and how like amazing this DLC was. I mean, the raid was just fantastic. I've spent probably close to like 10 in-game hours. I don't know about out time. I mean, it could have just been like in total, just at that raid alone, just running it. Like I didn't even want the gear at that point. It was just for like the fun experience of getting to do a raid, and that's what got me into raiding and all these other exciting things. And then you could do all this annual stuff. The map was just gorgeous, and the Taken was my favorite enemy. I don't know how I feel about the Scorn. The Scorn are still kind of thrown up in the air. Like it's just like the least favorite. Like they were definitely the hardest enemies to kill next to the Taken, but they weren't like my absolute favorite. Forsaken had the least amount of glitches. It came with all this other great stuff, and we had a really good time until we realized what Bungie had planned for the rest of the DLC. That's right, guys. This is where the annual pass started. This is the nightmare of what kind of ruined Destiny. So let's go ahead and let's get into this hunk of garbage that ruined my game. Destiny 2 Annual Pass was also released alongside the third expansion. Forsaken was available as a bundle with Forsaken or be purchased separately from Forsaken, although Forsaken as a whole DLC was also required to play the content of the Annual Pass. That means the average player was spending on top of $40 on top of the other $40 they had spent for the 2 previous DLCs, now on top of another $10 or $30 depending on the price of the season pass. That means in total, players have paid a close amount to almost $200 at this point just on Destiny alone. And I mean, for a game like Destiny, that is absolutely insane, especially since you think of like the base game price was like $60, first DLC was $20, second DLC was $20, Forsaken was $40, and then the promise of the annual pass, and the annual pass came around. The annual pass, of course, they made you pay for that as well, so that's another $30 on top of that, depending on each season. If you bought them individually, they were $10 a piece. So the DLC was garbage. So the annual pass included 3 premium downloaded content packages that were released in winter 2018, spring and summer of 2019. Content in these content drops included new endgame challenges, new weapons, armor, and vanity rewards to collect, new and returning exotics, Pinnacle activities, new triumph records to collect, and new lore to discover. All of the content in the annual pass became free to all owners of Forsaken on September 18th, 2019, just prior to the release of the next expansion, Shadowkeep, which changed the way each seasonal content was purchased and delivered. Alright, when the annual pass dropped, I bought it. I hate to say it, but I bought it. The content that was dropped in these season passes was excellent content, like Season of the 4, just pretty fun for a while until it got boring. went back to just playing base Forsaken content. It was just kind of this top on top grind. Like, I wish they had released DLC like that, just like back to back combined like that. It was a good idea at first, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy that I had to buy more content after I had just exclusively bought Forsaken. But together on top, Season of the Forge and Forsaken were a very good duo. They even introduced wonderful weapons, just as like the Izanagi's Burden, which was, in my opinion, the best weapon in the game at the time, and probably the most broken. And we're not even going to talk about the other hand cannon one that should not have existed, basically equivalent to the Mega Buster and Mega Man. Then after Season of the Forge, we got Season of the Drifter. We can just skip that. Then we get into Destiny 2's final expansion in the Season Pass, Season of Opulence, released on June 4th, 2019, known as the Penumbra, was the third and final content drop for the annual pass that focused on Emperor Kalos' Leviathan raid. This was the Pinnacle DLC for me. At this point, I had pretty much exclusively sold my life to Destiny 2. Now, after Season of the Drifter, I was completely and utterly disappointed. I saw this DLC content drop, and my eyes instantly just like shot open. Like, holy crap, we're actually getting a real DLC. It's legitimate. There's all this fun stuff. There's things to do. We have all this grinding to do. We had the new weapon. We had Bad Juju, which, by the way, I never even got to this day. But we had all this other stuff that was just so much freaking fun. And then that's when we had Destiny 2 as like world first. That's when the whole YouTube and Twitch streaming community got huge. Like, I remember YouTube like blowed up at the world's first at the rate of this, and it was just like fantastic for me. And it just like drew me into this crowd, and I loved being a part of it. And this is like the pinnacle and final moments of Destiny 2 feeling like absolute home for me. And it was just so heartwarming. But by this point, most of my friends unfortunately had stopped playing the game. They gave up around the time Season of the Drifter came out. They were kind of tired of the Forges, and I mean, a lot of the stuff required you to go back to the Forges, and a lot of people haven't finished Forge content. Season of the Drifter was pretty short-lived, and no one really played. Kind of came out a little bit during the spring, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people never even really got into, and it just got boring really quickly. By this point, Destiny 2 had already moved on to its own platform on Steam. It had Steam downloads, Steam uploads, and I mean, it wasn't exactly by that point. It was in the next point when it comes up to the next expansion that comes out. But Destiny 2, even to this point, had a lot of server errors, and there was so much crap going on in the Blizzard store, and I can't even begin to count all the things. The player count had been one of the lowest it has been after like 2 weeks of Season Opulence being in. It was just overall a depressing time to be a Destiny 2 fan. Now, we're at the point of the video where Season of Opulence has just ended. We have reached Shadowkeep. We have reached the Promised Land. Destiny has promised all of this amazing stuff like cross-play. They had promised the new Steam platform would be good. They had promised the game to be free to play for new players, but they'd have to buy the expansion content. It was a wonderful introduction in what they called New Light. The only problem is, they never really fixed the errors they've had since the beginning of the game. All this disputing and infighting was going on about the direction of the game. That's why they split. And even since that time, Destiny 2 had still been suffering from just this huge, long array of issues. Like, the competitive play was still a nightmare. Everyone was just cheesing, and it was just this and back and forth. The original campaign was boring. Everything to do with all the older content was boring and recycled, and all these fetch quests that made you go back to older planets, relive all this old content that you had a good time on, trying to bring back the nostalgia effect to make you go back to this content. It just didn't work. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about Shadowkeep, and I think the Wikipedia page speaks for itself in terms of like how well they actually developed it. This, for me, was kind of the turning tide point of the game. Not including even the base game, but just everything included in it is just so short. And it's just, that's all I can do to describe the game. It's just so short. There's no content. There's no fun. Like, even the video, like, I was so amped up to just ready to like destroy this game, but I can't, because there's not even really like content to destroy. And that's my problem with it, is that Destiny is just all these appearances and all this greatness, and they show all this good fun stuff, but it's not fun. It's just repetitive. They're doing like what World of Warcraft is doing, where it's just like they base repetition on how many times people have to repeat the same steps, even though there's only like 6 things to repeat. I mean, it's always just like PvP and strikes, and I don't even know. I'm not even going to touch Gambit ever again. Like, I don't want to. That was so fucking miserable. They did it the first time. Never again. And it's just so... This is why I'm just so done with Destiny. Now, me personally, in my life at this point, I had kind of stopped playing the game as soon as Shadowkeep came out. I had actually got deployed to basic training at the time, so I didn't even get to complete the game. I ended up actually finishing the Shadowbringers campaign, which only took about like 4 hours to do. And it was like a $40 DLC, and it took me like 4 hours. That's $10 an hour. That's like their rate of someone getting paid. Like, that's just ridiculous. That's what Bungie's making from just every single one of us who just plays this title. It's just everything's so short and depressing, and I don't even remember any memorable moments. Like, stuff about Eris Morn, and it came out June 6, 2019, and it just, at that point, it was already broken. They had introduced Armor 2.0, broken. They had pretty much promised us that they were going to show all world armor, broken. It just fucking terrible. And at this point, you're probably asking yourself, like, why play Destiny? Why make this video? It's because this is a game that I really care about, that I just can't see to just destroy anymore. It's just fucking terrible. All my friends have quit. I've quit. I've had the game uninstalled for a while. I tried getting back into it like 2 weeks ago, and I can't. And I thought Beyond Life was going to be the saving grace for this game, but it's not. The player count is the lowest it's ever been, and the content is just so terrible. Even the campaign is terrible. And I'm about to blow your mind when I say this, is that for those of you who have stuck around with this video, you have successfully completed the campaign cutscenes for this DLC just by watching this video. I have tried to perfectly time this video so that by the time we finish this video, the campaign's done. I just did the entire cutscenes of the campaign. You can basically get the general premise of the campaign in the time it takes you to watch this video. And I know I just briefly basically hit on just like a history lesson of Destiny 2, but I just wanted to go over, for me, kind of what it was like to just experience this game and how like garbage it had become, and just like how short, and it's just terrible. I don't really know what to say here other than just like, I quit. Sorry, Bungie, I can't do it anymore. I'm gonna go play Master Chief Collection, one of the best things you ever made, but I don't think I'm ever gonna come back to this game ever again. So if you like the video, just make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below for a little more things. I'm going to put in the description a few bit more. I'm going to go on a more in-depth video soon about other stuff. But for now, I just kind of want to make this quick video on just why I just can't. So this is Cloud Chemist, and I'll see y'all later. Hopefully next time the Traveler shines down on us, we can actually enjoy some Destiny 2. But until then, thanks for watching.